Welcome back to another episode of Supergene Unleashed. I am so thrilled to have the one and only Monika Proffitt joining us today. And I say the one and only because I think you have probably one of the coolest last names. And I'm such a stickler for a good last name. When I met you and why, I really wanted to bring you on the show today is because looking at who you were when I met you to who you are now, it's almost like completely different people, or it's like multiple different people. I don't know. You have so many different interesting sides to your personality. But what I remember is that you were actually within the creative space, and you were, I think, the owner of something called Starry Night or something, which was like an artist residency.
Yeah. I had bought an apartment building in my early 20s. And just because I was like, I think I just like this town. It's a tiny little cheap town in southern New Mexico. Property's super inexpensive. I don't know. I'm just going to, the mortgage isn't that bad. It's cheaper than my rent. So I got that. And I still lived in Seattle at the time. So I'd go between this desert and this really rainy city. And I slowly fixed up the place over 10 years. And then I was like, what do I want to do with this place? I thought maybe my brother would need a place to stay, and now he didn't. And I was like, I don't know. And at some point I thought I want to go to an artist residency, but it's so intimidating. And then I was like, well, why don't I just make an artist residency and make it not intimidating on purpose and try to attract people just like me? Because I was a working artist at the time. And I was like, yeah, emerging artists don't know how to get into the world of residencies. I'm just going to make this really accessible. Because I'm intimidated. That means lots of other emerging artists are intimidated. So I ran that.
Wait a second. What kind of an artist were you? I don't know if I knew this, or maybe
I was a visual artist. Yeah, actually, that way up there, that's one of my old paintings from the early 2000s.
Oh wow! Okay,
I still have it.
So you primarily painted.
Yeah, and then I also learned to blow glass, and I did interactive installations. So I did light and sound interactive installation, and then painting.
And so your whole point with this residency was all about accessibility and removing intimidation.
Yeah.
I think is wonderful because I think for anyone who's navigating an emerging career, there can be a bit of hesitation in terms of how do you build a network. And so it's quite interesting to hear, because oftentimes I talk with some of my guests actually about building a network and the importance of that, but it's mainly in a professional or corporate type setting. So hearing about it within the creative arts is also something nice. And obviously, since this was quite some time ago, it was also before really social media and the ease of finding people online was available. But yet at the same time, having a physical space offers that, closeness, which I think is required for art. So how did things go with Starry Night? And can you walk us through what happened from there? Because now, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit, but you are went from being an art nerd to a crypto nerd.
Yeah, it's
which true. I really don't understand.
That's true. So it actually there's a direct line here. After running Starry Night, and it was not just the residency. Every couple of years, I would get bored and I would launch another line of the business. And one of them was the exposure program. So that was taking emerging artists, because people would come to the residency and say, okay, I made all this art, but how do I get it into big art fairs? And I was like, well, I don't know. Let me think. What's my most intimidating art fair that I wish I could get into? Art Basel, Miami. So I'm just going to go to Art Basel, Miami and see why I don't see emerging artists there, and see how I could make it happen. And I was figured out that I could start a gallery, and I could just take my emerging artists and be like, these are my artists. And now we have a way in because I have a gallery. So I leveraged the residency to start a gallery, and then started a program where I was like, listen, I don't know how to afford all of this. I can't just most galleries, they pay for everything and then they take 50 or 70% of the commission of your sale of your work. So they take on all the risk. But I didn't have the money to do that. I didn't have any endowment or anything. So I was like, okay, I'll figure out how much it costs and split it up and see how many artists I can just charge to come. And then I won't take a commission. So then they take on the risk. and I can still get them in. So
So, but the
I inverted the
artist,
model.
if they sold in this gallery, would they still get a significant amount of money from their piece, or?
They would get all of it, other than like just the 3% for a transaction, a credit card transaction. They got all of it. And then eventually, I think it was like we kept 10% because I had to pay somebody to like basically like be a worker at the, like a representative at the gallery, but it was very little. So they basically kept 90% of their money on their work. So we helped them price it, we put on the show, and then people were like, well, you know, how are you going to promote me? And I was like, well, I'll start a publication. So then I had the artists to look out for book, and like I would publish in the annual publication of like all of the artists that we'd served that year and all the artists that had applied. And then it was like, okay, now you can be in something and like show a collector, like you've been published. Here's a bio on you and things like that. And then I did an online digital program to teach artists the business of art. So I just kept listening to the artists and like trying to address what they didn't know how to do.
So basically this gallery, you could afford it because the artist paid a portion of that fee to showcase.
So,
okay, got it.
Yeah, and all like I looked at how much it costs for the space. You have to apply as a gallery, and you have to show like why the art fair would want to have you there. They don't want to have crappy work, and they don't want to let just anyone in, and it's kind of exclusive, and that's why you don't see emerging artists in these spaces very easily. So I was like, oh, so I'm just gonna like pretend I'm way fancier than I am and pretend that I have a gallery in New Mexico along with this residency, which really I don't. I just have a residency. And then tell them I want to bring my artists here. And then I just put an open call out for artists, and they had to apply and pay a fee to be in the program. But if they got in the program, they were given a turnkey experience and access to being in our program if they were selected. So as long as their work wasn't terrible, I put them in the gallery, and then suddenly you could see emerging artists at like Art Basel, Miami, which was impossible otherwise.
Yeah,
so I mean,
cool. That's really amazing. And I really love this story of representing, quote unquote, the underdog. But it's true because oftentimes, you know, you see so many people that are like celebrities and they have these big names. And there are many people out there who, in multiple types of careers, aspire to make it big, but yet it can be so out of reach and people don't know where to start. And so it's really admirable that you were able to come up with a gateway for these people to, an access point, as you say, to something that was previously off limit. But what I find interesting is that you know, as an artist yourself, because obviously that's, you know, a very right brain thing. You know, often artists don't really have the business sense. So how did you have the business sense at the same time? Like, how did you, you know, think to do this? So was it just because, you know, people were coming with problems and you have it inherently in you that you want to solve the problems?
Well, I think that probably started with wanting to solve my own problems. I mean, my dad was a mathematician. Proffitt, last name weird, but like, you know, Michael Proffitt was a mathematician. And both of my grandfathers did, you know, trading and mutual funds and stuff. So that was always sort of like math came easily to me. But what I loved was art. And I had found art to be way harder. And after I got out of college, I was like, what is the hardest thing I can do? I think the hardest thing I can do is try to have an art career. And so I decided just to try it. And I remained a bartender and just did, you know, art career only for a very long time, just because it was so challenging and because I actually loved it. And I thought rather than just do the things that come easily to me, I'll do the things that are harder. But the stuff that was easy for me, and in terms of like looking at a problem, being like, how do I solve that hard thing? How do I get into a space I'm not supposed to be in? It really came from like, as a little kid, I mean, as smart as my dad was, and my mom as well, like it wasn't a very happy childhood. And by the time I was about 11, I was like budgeting. I was like, how much does my school lunch cost? Yeah. Wow. Like I go to the store with my stepmom and my dad or whatever, or my mom, and I'd be like, how much are those sodas that I'm taking in my school? How much are 2 slices of bread? How much are those cold cuts? And I would like try to figure out how much my school lunch cost. And then like how much, like, what's a light bill? How does that work? Who charges you? How do you get light? And what's a mortgage versus rent? When I started watching, and by the time I was like 13, I was like watching the rent market, and I started working in the summer and saving up my money. And I ran away from home I started running away when I was 15.
Wow. I mean, what do you mean you ran away? Like, so you just packed your bags and and
Well,
just
I guess the first time I
left?
ran away, I was 14. Yeah, I did. I
But
just
where
had
did
it.
you
My mom
go?
threw a fit,
Where did
and
you go?
so I went to so my brother ran away also, if that tells you anything. It wasn't
Okay.
just me. And when he ran away, he was 6 years older than me, but so I'd always known where he went because he made friends with a kid at school whose mom had run away and taken care of herself from the time she was 12. So she
Wow.
was like that one person who like kept an eye out for the kid who was obviously, even though you're in the
Yeah.
suburbs and everyone's white and it's all nice and pretty and double paned windows, like who's really not doing okay? You know, she always had an eye out for it. And so when my brother came home with her son one day, basically she just says, Daniel came home one day and he just never left. And he didn't. She was a hippie. She was a nice person. She didn't beat people up. She was sweet.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
stayed for like 2 years. She ended up renovating her attic. So he had a place to stay. He had a room because she didn't have any more room for him. And she became a foster parent so she could take in kids and not get sued for like harboring a runaway.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
so
was going to ask
like,
about was how was it that he could continue to stay,
well, because my dad was like, okay. And my
Okay.
mom also was like, okay. Like they both
Okay.
let us go. They never
Okay.
like tried to get
Got
us
it.
back and put us on. I'd say we had a gentleman's agreement. My parents,
Okay.
by the time I left, they were like, if you don't embarrass us and tell our friends and you don't get in trouble with the law and get any eyes looking at us, we won't mess with you. Go do what you're going to do. So I
I
ran away when
see.
I was first 14 and I went to her house.
So
And
you
then
really had independence instilled in you at such a
yeah,
young age, and
yeah,
also you were so inquisitive about these topics of, understanding self-sufficiency, which is
yeah.
quite
And I mean,
cool to
getting,
see because a lot of people, especially in curriculum doesn't necessarily focus on basic life survival. There's not
yeah,
a lot of focus on preparing a budget or, knowing how to prioritize wants versus needs.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I was like, I mean, my wants were so low and my needs were so pertinent that I was like, okay. I mean, I think in 1992, I think there was a level at which you didn't get taxed even $1 on your income tax, and
Wow.
it was $6,250 for the year, and I lived on less than that
Wow.
in high
I
school.
mean, that would not even get you 1 month's rent in New York City for a really
Yeah, right.
nice place.
Yeah, but figuring out how do you get a job when you're not legally supposed to be working
Yeah.
full time? How do you get an apartment when you can't legally sign a lease? How do you like getting into spaces where I didn't belong has been just like
Your specialty?
yeah, like and
Well,
you think
it
I don't belong
sounds
here? I'll
like
see
it
you.
because you said something earlier that also stood out to me was that you actually had to think about which path you could pursue that would be the most difficult. Whereas most people that I speak to are thinking about what's the easiest way. Everyone wants the easy way. Everyone wants the shortcut, the instant fame, the overnight success story. But Monika Proffitt, she wanted to go through it all.
Well, actually, it's funny you say go through it all because I tell people this when they notice it about something, they'll be like, "Why did you do that?" And I'm like, "Have you ever been on a bus? Like bus rides are usually the whole route is a circle, right?
Yeah.
But you only see like a part of it. You get on here and you get off there, and then you get on here and you get off there. Like you go to work and then you come home.
Yeah.
And so the bus driver knows you for these blocks, right? But the bus driver sees the whole route. So
Mm.
I'm like, I kind of think in my life, I'm just not going to only one place. I'm like, I want the whole ride. I just want the whole ride. Like, I want to collect friends that are not like me. I want to know what it's like to not be me. Like, I pretended to be a homeless person in 8 cities in America
You
in
did.
college. Yeah, I call it the homeless papers. I posed to be as a homeless person and I tested the homeless services in 8 cities in America just because I was like, I worked
Wow.
in homeless services, but I wanted to know what it was like to be a client and see like if maybe I was like not being as effective as a social worker as I wanted to be. So
And
I
what
was
did
like,
that
I'm going to go be
teach
a homeless
you?
person.
I mean, wow. I mean, what a crazy way to look at it. I mean, I'm just a bit blown away almost and a little bit tongue tied here because these are things, although we've been friends for a very long time, I actually didn't know about you, but I really love the vantage point that you gave about life with having a circular or a route
The whole route.
experience that exposes you to many things. And why I like that is because I think that right now, with the current climate and state of the world, there's just so much negativity, so much conflict, that this type of understanding and empathy and putting yourself in multiple different shoes, if you will, is something we could all really use, to build better bridges, to build deeper understanding. And of course, the space that I'm, navigating right now, and what Supergene Unleashed is all about, is really focused on female empowerment. So I find this quite empowering, as an individual, to equip yourself with this emotional intelligence of, walking a day in everybody's shoes.
Well, I mean, I had an experience that, if it hadn't been for this woman who had had a really out crazy experience, then she had been on her own since she was 12 and been in the dead tour and had her kids as a teenager. And she took my brother and me in, and she gave me this example. And she was the person who was like, I can see that you're not, like, things aren't working out for you. And like, we could easily gloss over it, like everyone else in the neighborhood that just wants to pretend it's all fine. But so it made me like go, well, without her, like I needed someone to see me and be willing to look in the uncomfortable places to recognize me and help me even find a way to belong and find a way that I thought I mattered, because I wasn't getting that message.
Right.
Like I made that up. I just made that up out of thin air, but she helped me because she had to make it up for herself. Right. And so it really instilled in me, like, your struggle is probably the superpower that you can give to someone else. And
the lessons that you learn from that struggle.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but like, plants that like suddenly flower are usually under some sort of stress, and like humans that suddenly blossom have oftentimes seen adversity. And I've never found a more boring person than someone who's just really not seen much. And I'm not saying that like I want to court damage or something, but I think in the risk taking of trying new things and maybe risking that it hurts is going to just lead to a richer life. And it also, if you're willing to share your experience or willing to look at others and find the difference in them, the way that they're not served, the hardship that they're going through, the place they may not be very visible or included, like that's super important, because you can see that so much more clearly once you've experienced it. And now you kind of owe it to others, right? Like, it just comes intrinsically
to pay it
like
forward.
I'm invisible, so if I see you're not visible, I'm looking for you and I'm going to acknowledge you.
Yeah, for sure. You have to pay it forward. And, when you meet other people that are different to you, it does come in handy to be able to have had these life experiences to spot these things that other people might not be able to see. So I just want to touch on, though, you said something about, having had all these adverse moments, and it's really leading to a theme of building your resilience and, building that dynamic nature that you've had, where you have no fear to go after something completely out of your wheelhouse. But I want to ask you, like, have you had self-doubt, though?
I mean, yeah. But I have to remind myself, like, even as a teenager when it was so hard, like I had to work full time and I was going to school full time. Like I'm probably the most proud of that time of my life, because it was the hardest time I've been through.
Because you also, at that time, you were not living at home. You were out.
I was supporting myself.
You had to be self-sufficient at a very young age.
Yes, I was, and it was very difficult, and I'm very proud of myself for it. Right? I mean, I'm almost 50 years old, and like I'm proud of my teenage years.
Yeah,
it's so funny, but it's true. Like, because of that, I think I now, when I reach adversity, I'm like, oh, this is so hard. Like, he broke up with me, or like, oh, I lost the job, or like someone told me I failed or I sucked or whatever. Then I just have to stop and be like, Monika, you've been homeless and 16 years old with $2 in your pocket. Like, really? This is hard. This is hard, really? Like, come on, let's remind ourselves. And like, so it makes me just kind of put adversity in my life now in perspective. I try not to do that with other people when they're like, this is hard, because I'm like, you can't quantify pain for other people, but I can kind of quantify it for myself and be like, okay, so my company failed.
Yeah, exactly. Because you also don't know what other pain points that person has been through. And especially like when the person's facing the issue, it
Yeah.
of course always feels like the biggest catastrophe in the moment because there's so much emotion tied to the beginning of that experience when you're
Yeah.
facing the problem or the setback or the reality of it. But I want to shift gears a little bit into, some of the drivers that helped you succeed. Um,
Well,
you know,
you asked me about moving from art to crypto.
yeah,
And
exactly. And
I looked at like the last 8 years after 8 years of running the residency and all these programs, I looked at like who I had, who I'd served, like let's get some data on how many people have been served, how many grants did I give away, how many scholarships, how many people, whatever. And the demography of it turned out to be this very high percentage rate of the people that came to my programs were white women, young white women. And I'm sure part of that was my marketing, and I made the programs for me.
okay.
So look at that. And then I
Yeah.
thought, but art is, or one of the functions of art is for a culture to recognize itself and talk about itself with itself and see itself and understand itself, right? That's what an artist is really conveying on a societal level. And I realized that then I'm promoting this skewed, more white voice in America that's not actually accurate. And I thought, well, why aren't the people of color? Why aren't the immigrants? Why aren't the folks that aren't young white women coming to my programs? And that led me to think about financial inclusion and how, if I was an immigrant, a first or second generation, I'm busy getting into the professional class. I can't have this like elective poverty of being a visual artist. I'm probably helping my parents, and thinking I might want to
I
have a
see.
family.
So you were basically uncovering that these people probably couldn't, even if in their heart
Yeah,
of hearts, that's what they
yeah,
wanted to do, they
yeah.
couldn't.
And in the meantime, I'm perpetuating this unintentional white dominance in the
Yeah.
cultural voice because that's who can come to my programs, and I'm launching them into places all over the place. Yeah. And so I thought, well, if I want to do more impact work, that means I have to think about racial impact and other equity issues that's beyond just like the cultural voice getting stronger and having more emerging artists and emerging voices in it. So then I was like, that kind of led me to financial inclusion. And when I discovered blockchain as a technology that's like basically the internet of transactions and
Yeah.
money, I was like, wait, this is the kind of tool that could really have an impact. Maybe 2 generations down the line, we would then see more people with more wealth and more people with more cultural voice and participating. So
But
if I
what is
want
it
to see that
about
happen, I should do
blockchain
this.
that made that association for you? I mean, maybe it's because I don't fully understand blockchain. I mean, I do. I know about it within marketing and advertising and digital, because that's the use case I'm familiar with. But how could you
Yeah.
draw an association like this?
Well, it was through like cryptocurrency and seeing like what micro investment looked like. So like if you could take any asset, or a coin could be like, priced at like fractions of a penny. And so that just to me said that like, well, then the cost of it is coming so far down and the increment of it is so small that it's accessible. And then I would,
I
hopefully
see.
some of them were going to increase, but like there's just that you can cut it down to smaller amounts. Like an entire share of Apple's $189 or something, like,
I see. So you saw this as an accessibility for,
yeah,
an underrepresented community that is
yeah,
likely also lower income, and doesn't really know how to get their foot in the door because like you just said, like those Apple big,
mhm,
S&P
yeah,
500 is so out of touch. So
kind of.
yeah.
Yeah. And crypto was like just this little, I just saw the potential of it. And I was like, I remember hearing about the cloud and SaaS and kind of
Yeah.
making fun of the terms back in the day. And the first time I heard blockchain, I was like, what a dumb name. Like too many syllables or too many consonants in the middle. Blockchain, it's a terrible word. And I was like, Monica, you made fun of the cloud and
Yeah.
you missed that boat. Maybe you should take another look. And I did. And I took it more seriously. And I realized, oh, wow, this is a very, very cool technology. So I was pretty young in it. Like I was got involved in blockchain in 2016, and then I
Oh,
sold the residency in 2018, and that's just like pivoted just straight to technology, and that's become like education and trying to. I wrote a book. I had a mentor basically say, "Listen, I hate to tell you, but all your ideas about blockchain, the men that work with you are going to steal your ideas. I can tell you that
oh,
right now."
wow.
And so you need to brand yourself. She's like, you need to write a book. And she's like, I'm writing a book right now. She had written other books that got her like notoriety in her field. And so she was like, I'm writing a book now called The Thought Leader Formula, and I want to use you as a case study. Will you do what I say and follow my formula? And if you do, I'm going to put you in my book. And I was like, sure. So she told me what to do. Write a book, answer these questions, do these things, reverse engineer it, release it this way, blah, 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 blah. You can even self-publish. It doesn't matter. Put your face on the cover of it. Make predictions and quote yourself a lot.
All within blockchain. So,
yeah.
and because at the time, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, unfortunately, a lot of the tech trends are male dominated, and definitely this was one of them. And I think it still arguably is. So as you were getting into this new field, as somebody not at all coming from, an adjacent field, even nonetheless, you weren't even coming from an adjacency. You decided to once again take a bold leap, write a book about theories and predictions that you had about blockchain and put your face on the cover.
Blockchain 101. It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
It's not a very thick book. It's
I'll
just
have
enough
to look it up and read it so I can get a little bit more enlightened. But I want to actually dig in, to the whole point, because obviously I'm super focused on female empowerment, and I want to dig into this whole nuance because you actively inserted yourself in a male dominated field. Tell me what that's like, and what was the response to your book? Have some of those predictions come true? How have some of your male industry peers reacted to you coming into the scene with such a full force entrance?
Yeah. Well, let's see. The book has served its purpose, right? It's like basically if you have a book, I found that one of the easiest ways to use the book, to leverage the book, if it wasn't just like, here, have a book, it's better than a business card, right? You'll never forget me now, read it on the plane or whatever. And that was fine too. Like just to have a bunch to give away, people will definitely remember you. And with my memorable name in the book as well, it was like very simple, easy way to build a brand,
of course,
and be remembered. So that was good. And then with the book in particular, like I kind of found that when I was on a phone call, like with a man who's going to mansplain me stuff that I already know.
Oh, really?
We've all been there where you're like, oh, this is going to be such an
absolutely.
Call.
And then at the end of the day, you actually know more than that person that's trying to tell you what they think they know.
And if they don't shut up, they'll never find out first of all, what you have to share. And secondly, that you know more than them. They'll never give you a chance. But
it's because they implicitly feel your
superior
presence and your dominating presence exudes that confidence. And I feel like it's them that they have to overcompensate and insert their authority because they can't handle that, a woman might know more. I mean, have you encountered that?
So, okay, I'll tell you this. If you need to build a brand as a woman and you need to be able to handle those conversations effectively and quickly, like you have a 30-minute quick intro call,
Yeah.
And this guy's going to mansplain me the whole time. And if I don't know how to pivot it, either I can be rude and say, I already know that. And now I'm going to get in here, and he can leave the call thinking, wow, she was kind of rude.
True, because they would think that, right? Because that's the default. A woman is always perceived in a more negative light when she's direct.
Of course. So you can't do that, because now he gets off the phone call and he's like, God, she was a bitch. Or he gets off the phone call and you don't correct him and he's like, well, she was a cute little lady. I'm glad I could tell her some stuff. It's never like,
I'm glad I could educate her.
Right. So if you have a book and you go, oh, that's a great point. I actually wrote about that in chapter 3. I will send you a copy of my book. Have you seen it? So in chapter 4, though, I talked about da-da-da-da-da. Now I'm just going to give you a book.
Mic drop by Monika Proffitt. I mean, seriously, you just blew me away. I mean, it's like, okay, hold the phone.
Yeah. And I wrote it down, so you can't say it's your idea.
You're coming out with all the footnote reference points. I wrote this on, December 15th, 2018. That exact sentence.
Just like the woman who took me in, her name is Mitra. The woman who taught me this, who told me to write a book, is Robin Farmian. Crazy long last name. You guys, you should totally meet her. She's amazing. She's I consider her a mentor. She's brilliant. She talks even faster than me. She's even tinier than me. She's amazing. She's just incredible. And her story is incredible. She should be on your show for sure. But she's actually who like mentored me. And like, you know, she's like, you can use the book in this way. You can use the book in that way. And when you write the book, she's like, right. I'm like, what do I have to say? She's like, that's the hardest part of writing a book. So think about, you know, who you're going to talk to and what you have to say to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so she's like, write your book for smart people that don't want to ask stupid questions. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because you want to be able to be an authority figure and an educator to people that are already smart and powerful, but they just don't want to ask stupid questions. So you're the person that demystifies
It's super true, because I have found, you know, some points in my own career where, you know, I've gotten into leadership positions, I've done adjacent moves, and, you know, sometimes you find that there is something simple that you want to ask, but you feel like, in my position, I probably should know that, so I don't want to ask. So I really like that little tactic.
Yeah, Robin taught it to me. So again, I feel like the things that have really helped leverage and catapult me forward have been women checking, like helping me and sending the elevator back down, or helping me get somewhere, or like just saying, I see you and I'm gonna teach you just the cliff notes, the cheat sheet of this. And that was just, it's always been like, I actually wrote a post about this a long time ago when I first got into blockchain, because I was like, wow, I'm now speaking. I'm a keynote speaker in places. I'm on panels. I'm on stages. I've written a book. I've been invited to, you know, host a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I looked back and I realized it was every single time there was a pivotal thing that got me further into a new room at another table. It was another woman that helped me get there.
Wow.
And that was like amazing to me. There were like 7 women that I could point out exactly in that post who like got me here, who got me there, who introduced me to this person. It was amazing.
I mean, that's incredibly encouraging to hear, because I have not always heard this to be the case. And in fact, you know, that's one of the main things that I hope to bridge, is I hope to, you know, because unfortunately I have met women who bring other women down. I've also met women that do exactly what you say. You're very lucky that all the people that have, you know, kind of been your enabler have been women. But unfortunately, there's still times where women bring other women down, and they don't want to see the other person succeed, or don't want to share their connection or this or that. But, you know, I think that that's sad, because we're still in a very harsh reality where women are still underrepresented in so many different domains, so many different industries. Our voice is still dimmed. We and we need as many advocates as possible. And if we can't have our own, i.e., women, advocating for us, then we don't have a united front. So I'm really happy to hear and encouraged by that. What about?
I worked in tech, like kind of Web 2.0, and when the cloud and SaaS kind of came up, that's when I was making fun of it, because I was clearly not hip. And I did feel like women back then in the tech workspace, in that white collar world that I only kind of want to dabble in anymore. But like, they were more the tear down and like, don't trust them. And there was like, we're all scrambling for like really limited resources. And it was so nice to leave tech, be an entrepreneur in the art space, and come back to tech and Web 3.0 and find that it was just such a different experience. And the women in blockchain especially, there are so few of us that we are really,
you guys really have created a united front.
Yeah.
But how have you guys then like dealt with any of the difficulties with being in a male dominated space, and what advice might you have to other women for navigating this?
Gosh, I mean, I noticed
other
that,
than
like,
writing a book and putting your face on the cover.
Yeah, seriously. I think about how men, they deal with women a lot. They just don't deal with women in this particular way. Like they know how to have a sister. They know how to have a wife. They know how to have a girlfriend. They know how to have a fiance. They know how to have a daughter, maybe. They know how to have a sister and a mom. They know how to have these women. They know how to have an assistant. They know how to have a secretary.
Yeah.
And they know how to have like a mentee, but they don't really know how to have a woman doing just wearing exactly the same pants as them. They're not in any rule that's distinguished as different. They're completely the same.
Yeah.
It's really rare. And I mean, like there was a study that talked about how women actually don't utter more words in a day than men. Men utter way more words. But the thing that men utter more words overall in a day than women, if you can believe that, they utter like 70% of the words uttered at work in the workplace are uttered by men. Women get to 30% of them in. So we don't speak much at work. We speak way less than men typically statistically. And therefore at home, we talk more. So why is it perceived that we talk so much? Because men have been in a male space all day. They come home, they're in the home. And now that's where we have voice. Again, leaving us like in a place where we're just to be heard. The spaces where we'll be heard are the spaces that happen to be more traditionally provided to us. Right. And so it's so strange. Because coming from hospitality, I worked in hospitality, as high school and college,
of course,
and then social work, and then the house you're gonna make any money, and then the arts. Those are all female, like not dominant, because the executive directorship in the arts is mostly held by men, but every other position is held by women. So it's still predominantly women all over the place. But like, I didn't really understand how male dominated an industry could be until I got to crypto, and I really dug in and stayed. And like, it is astounding to me how many times I could just hear it in their presumptions of not necessarily superiority, but just simply like that. This is just how it is. This is it's going to be, and there is a superiority underneath it. They just don't, they don't mean it. They don't clearly don't mean it, but it's like, the fact that they're surprised when I have an insight they didn't have. There's the fact that they're, oh, wow. That's
okay. So their reaction basically clues you into how they're feeling deep down about what you have to say.
And then I have to do all this extra emotional labor to make it not obvious that like, how insulting that you would be surprised by that. You know, you can't ever have that
but
reaction.
How do you not let that chip away at you? I mean, I know that you're a really strong person. Obviously, you've really like been through a lot. But how can like somebody who maybe doesn't have that same strength, like not feel defeated by that? Because again, there's many women that would like to pursue something, but maybe they're a bit too afraid because it is male dominated, or maybe their encounter with a male has turned them off or made them scared to go after it. So how do you kind of balance that? Because I mean, I gotta imagine it chips away at you just a little bit.
It chips away at me for sure. And, I think kind of there's a theme here I'm seeing that like, when it happens to me, I know it's happening to you. Yeah. So if I can't change directly if it's just going to happen, then it reminds me of this, like, there was a thought piece, or there was some like report done on how the Obama administration and all of their like really progressive like diversity and inclusion, within the cabinet and within the aides of the White House, they had a protocol that they ccame up with. They actually had a protocol that was like to create more space for women and acknowledgement of women and their contributions in the workplace. And it was, when a woman speaks, they were all trained on it. There was a training for it. When a woman, like an aides are getting together in a room and they're talking about a thing, there's women and men both. There's people, all these different backgrounds. Finally, like they were, at least the hiring practices got us there. And then a woman shares a thought. They were trained in a protocol to then, when somebody responds to the thought, for someone to speak up and say, I noticed that she said such and such, and I'd like to add blah, blah, blah. To always, if you're going to add to someone's thought, you give that person, you acknowledge her.
I see.
And then the third person, the training was also that a third person then needed to say, and like you had just said, I'd like to reinforce the da-da-da-da-da. So even if you had an additive thing to say, you were trained to acknowledge specifically the woman or person of color who contributed that.
Monica, you are igniting a little bit of a fire inside of me right now, because you just like pulled the curtain back on something that I have experienced in so many meetings. And that is not being acknowledged for what I said. Instead, when I have spoken something intelligent or added something meaningful to the conversation, 9 times out of 10, I have had a man within about 5 minutes, take
Say
what
it
I
again in a deeper
said,
voice.
regurgitate the same damn thing with a different set of words. But of course, as you said, use more words because I was more concise and more to the point with my delivery. I literally have had the biggest epiphany now about this
Yeah.
because
So
I have experienced this. And I used to say to some of my friends, like, I don't understand. I went to this meeting and I keep having these meetings and these men just keep basically saying what I'm saying, but they're saying it so much longer. And now to know that there
yeah,
was actually an awareness means that people uncovered that this is consistently happening.
yeah,
And
and a strategy to address it.
yeah,
So all
yeah,
you need
exactly.
is one other woman or one ally in that room, right? Once you teach this protocol to one ally in the room, that's all it takes. Even
It's
if you're the only
really
woman in the room, just
powerful
one
because
ally.
as well, I mean, it creates a space for greater efficiency because you better be completely prepared to add something new if you're going to acknowledge publicly what somebody just said.
Right.
Otherwise, you would look like a complete buffoon saying, "Oh,
The same thing.
Monika, I acknowledge that you just said XYZ, and I'm going to say XYZ too."
Or then
Nobody's
the next
asking
guy goes,
for
yeah, but XYZ. And they're like, well, we just
yeah,
acknowledged that Monika said that, right? So
right,
all you need is either, if
exactly.
you're the only woman in the room, you need one ally and you need to train them on this. And once you train a man on this, he's like, holy shit, I didn't realize, right? They just really can't believe that it's just under their nose the whole time. Once they're trained on the protocol and they have to take the action because they want to be an ally or a good guy,
Right.
get your good guy, right? And if you have two women in a room, if you're so lucky, tell her about it so you can do it to each other. Well, I noticed that, Stacy just said blah, blah, blah. And I'd like to add to that, blah, blah, blah. And back to what you were saying, Stacy, that was a really great point when you said da, da, da. It made me think of blah, blah, blah. Thanks, Monika. I really appreciate what you had just said about that.
Yeah. I mean, it can sound a bit cumbersome, but at the same time, I think it encourages a more thoughtful dialogue. But there's two things that I'm getting from this whole conversation. And that is number one, the importance of having a particular protocol, not just having a protocol about ensuring that male female dynamics in communication or in a professional setting are balanced, but making sure that the men are trained on this as well. And that's, something that drives me up the wall is that we have, International Women's Day and it's like one day, but all these programs and things are literally driven by women. Yeah, sometimes men, they grab one of the cupcakes or they buy the cupcakes for International Women's Day, whatever they do. But it's not deep enough. There needs to be a deeper presence and a deeper extra step. And the second thing that's coming out in this conversation, and this one actually makes me quite sad, is the fact that these protocols are being completely removed away. And, the current administration is encouraging the removal of these things. And it's actually, what's motivating me to create this united force because I've seen and the data is showing that, we spent all these years as women achieving certain things and capacity to do things in society, but we actually are falling behind now. And, especially COVID has basically forced women to make difficult decisions and stay at home. And at the end of the day, it is the removal of the importance of having diversity, having gender balance from administrations that is really going to catapult us back even further.
Oh, not just, we're going to go back further, but also I look at people as resources, right? We're human capital. If you think about like a country like Saudi Arabia, they wouldn't let women even read or drive.
Yeah, well, they let women drive now, but
you're getting rid of half of your resources. Why would you get rid of half of your resources? Like, how many Albert Einsteins have lived in totally different circumstances in the wrong place at the wrong time that we missed out on. Like if you're a humanist, if you actually care about humanity, don't you just want to see the best of what we have to offer? I mean, this whole arguing over the type of texture of our hair and the type of skin we have and like the genitals, like what? Really? Like we have brains and we have capacity. Like we are living resources.
Right.
Only an idiot would not want to tap into that, you know?
Yeah, I really don't know what it is. I don't know why there are so many people that, one, judge a book by its cover. And, I certainly have faced my share of situations like that. Of course, I don't concretely know, for instance, if I didn't get an opportunity due to my appearance, my ethnicity, the fact that I'm a woman, but it is something that crosses my mind. Absolutely. How can it not? And, just kind of going back into you continuing to be in a male dominated space. Have you ever actually, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Have you actually met any men in the space that are advocates?
Yes, 100%. There definitely are. I mean, I can't say that they're the majority. They're certainly not. I mean, crypto bros are a thing. And of course, like nobody's going to want to think they're not anything but a good guy, but I had some gems of wonderful men that, I mean, I feel also like I get along with men. I like male spaces. I kind of a guy's girl, like I'm not, I don't know. I think that sometimes once I break the ice and I'm just like willing to meet them where they are, they're so relieved to meet a woman who's not going to be really like create a binariness between us, but almost like bro out with them. Like, I can't tell you how many text messages I have with friends of mine and colleagues that are like, dude, did you see that? Bro, I know. Like, it's so funny.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Yeah. And I like that. I like finding a way to make men feel comfortable enough to relate to me as an equal. And if I have to do that emotional labor to get them there, I still reap the rewards,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, that it is nice when you can find that common ground. I do still think it's difficult to find that though in a more corporate situation, especially if, for instance, you have a male peer and maybe you're both vying for a promotion, or you are both in leadership positions and you want to show your capability to more senior leadership. I think it still can be very tricky to navigate, but it is certainly encouraging to hear that although you're in a male dominated space, you've still managed to find advocates, even though you've also faced, adversity.
I'm probably paying a very high price for this, that if there's a real deficit in my skill set, it's probably in those soft skills. I think I've kind of come to understand that I'm a little more neurospicy than I was ever told I was as a kid, because we didn't talk about that back then.
What does that even mean, neurospicy?
Like a little bit not neurotypical, right?
Okay.
Like a little, like I go a little too fast, I'm a little too, squirrel, like, okay.
I like that term. I mean, that term, I don't know, maybe it's because I haven't been in the US in some time. I miss out on all the new terminologies.
Yeah, I like it. But I mean, I think sometimes those soft skills, the patience and the ability to manage and navigate specifically a corporate workplace is something I very much fall short at. And I think I'm too impulsive. I think I'm too dynamic. I want to move too fast. I've worked for, in a government position. I've worked in corporate positions, and I do not enjoy them. And the politics are really confusing sometimes, even to me. And I do better working for myself. I do better working for startups or in small groups with other people that are kind of nerds in their own little way. And if you can get into the thing that they're into, almost like they're autistic, like, okay, I'm into options too. Options are cool. And whatever. And then you can build an alliance that's more interpersonal, but the corporate structure is one that's very, I know it's common, but it's very difficult for me. So I actually decided to try to divorce work and money as much as I could and just start trading and investing and figuring out how little money I could live on to be able to kind of retire myself, so that all of my work was optional. All of my work was selected for if I liked it, not that I had to do it. I've been trying really hard to tweak that. And I mean, it's not a perfect science, and I'm certainly not retired at this point, but like,
Okay.
that's my goal. And in looking at trading, I realized they don't know I'm a woman trader. And I looked at all the things I'd
Yeah,
done
I
over the
guess that's
pandemic.
true. You're behind the screen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, the most lucrative thing that I've done in the last 5 years is trade. So that says something to me
Yeah.
that like, I should probably
Yeah, that's
look do
also,
better.
a great thing as an encouragement for other women to look into. Because again, trading is a very male dominated space. So it's, you know,
But not from your pajamas in your
right,
house.
right. So you can be who you want to be behind that screen. And, maybe
Yeah.
you have a hidden talent that is awaiting you on the other side.
Yeah, I think the more that we can make work not something we have to do in person, we might find better dynamics emerging on their own.
Yeah.
Like an AI driven workplace or a remote only workplace might actually just inherently become more equitable because we're typing everything and like, or that, I don't know. I just think that there might be some technological advances that accelerate this conversation and hopefully open up the conversation of like equality in women in the workplace and like male domination or any kind of domination, white domination. That like maybe it'll emerge on its own. It'll accelerate this diversity because of just new context that's created through
Oh, for
technology.
sure. I mean, I think we are on the precipice of the next great revolution. We had the
Yeah.
industrial revolution, and now we're on the precipice of the AI revolution. And especially with agentic and the capability and capacity to have somewhat of an infinite workforce.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, we could go into a whole tangent on this topic because I also just saw a post that was talking about how agentic is going to unfortunately target primarily female roles first, or roles that are traditionally held by women. So I think, this is a great place to leave things. I want to leave it on a high note because really it has been so miraculous to hear your story and to hear about how you have managed to transform your life and really not have any fears about facing any new field, any new topic, irrespective of your age or even financial circumstance, which often a lot of people have these two barriers. They feel, oh, I missed the party, or I was late to the game, or oh, I'm too afraid to, leave behind that paycheck. But you've really proved that you can do it all. You ran away from home. You figured out how to budget at 13 years old, I think it was. But at the same time, your last name is Profit. So you have no choice but to be profitable. So I really want to say, Monika, thank you so much for being a part of Supergene Unleashed. I really, hope that we can connect again and hear more about your journey because I don't know where you're going to be next.
I don't either. I want the whole ride. We'll find out.
Yeah, I guess
It's
we
been
will
such a
find out.
pleasure.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you
so
so much
much,
for having me
Monika.
on.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure, and I just have loved hearing about. I mean, Super Gene Unleashed itself is just the coolest podcast. I can't wait to
Oh,
see all the
well,
things that come
thank
out
you
of it.
so much. I really appreciate it.